Hey, John here. Here's lick of the day number 147. This is a Romeo-Style picking run. As usual, I'm going to play it once slowly and then break it down. And during the breakdown, I'm going to share some practice advice you can apply to this one, as well as pretty much anything else you're practicing. If you want the tabs, you have a link to the tabs in the description below. We're going to start here on the 19th fret of the high E string. Right, this one is built from the E Phrygian dominant scale, and don't let the name scare you. It's simply a Phrygian scale, and that might be scary in itself, but a Phrygian scale is basically the third mode of C major, so that should make it slightly less scary. So it's like playing a C major scale starting from E, but the big difference here is that we hear everything from that note, meaning that all the notes are going to be compared in your ear towards that note, so it will not sound like a major scale at all. So, and that's because the intervals change. So the intervals we have for a normal Phrygian scale would be 1, flat 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, and then back to 1. But in this one, we're actually gonna raise the flat 3 up to a major third instead. So we get this spelling: 1, flat 2, 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7. And that major third really makes a difference in the way that this sounds a bit more exotic. And this happens to be then the fifth mode of the A harmonic minor scale. But again, don't let this stuff scare you. It's fairly basic stuff once you learn it. And I really do think you should, learn the theory about all this stuff, so you avoid that whole, what I call bingo guitar playing, where you just simply call out fret numbers like, oh, this is a really cool scale, it has 12, 13, 16. It's like, no, it's way easier for you to learn new things and remember things if you actually know what they're based on, so you can know the theory behind it. So I highly suggest you do that. Anyhow, we're going to start here on the 19th fret and play this diminished arpeggio. And normally when you play these diminished arpeggios, you tend to go there. When I say normally, that's like the Yngwie way of playing it, and basically you're not skipping any note. But in this case, we're going to skip this note and go straight to this one. So you get a slightly different sound because you get a bigger interval here instead of just having minor thirds in between each. But other than that, they work in the same way, in the sense that it's the same shape, just moved in thirds. So we start here, 19, 16, then we have 18, and then 16. And I play it with an upstroke, pull off, up, and then down, 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 up, pull off. So we're gonna get 8 notes in each position here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we'll repeat exactly the same thing, just starting on this note with our pinky. And then we'll repeat that again, starting on this note with the pinky. And so you get a repeated note here in between each, but that's just the way that it is. So after that, the last arpeggio here, we're gonna go up to the root, and we're gonna play this 8-note sequence again. And I call this a Romeo-Style picking run because he plays similar things. But this actual picking sequence is something that I picked up, no pun intended, from Paul Gilbert's second instructional video. So, not in this scale though, it was regular E minor, but the actual sequence though. So sort of credit where credit is due. So you can break it down like this. You have 5 notes and then 3. and in my world that's 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then you shift down to the next position. And the notes here, if we go back to our bingo guitar playing, we're gonna have 16, 13, 12 on the E string, 15, 13, 12 on the B string. And then we apply the sequence. Start with a downstroke and then just alternate pick. And we repeat the same sequence, 5 notes plus 3, but we're going to use the notes 13, 12, 10, 13, 10, 9. And then we shift down again to 7, and now this one is easier, it's less stretchy. We're going to have 10, 9, 7 on both the G and the D string. And then we shift down a half step to the major third. And now we're gonna play, let's see, we got 9, 7, 6. And then on the A string, we're gonna have 8, 7, 5. So 9, 7, 6, 8, 7, 5. And again, the same sequence. But instead of shifting down, we're just gonna end up on the root here. So from the beginning of the picking run, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's basically the whole thing. And practice-wise here, it's fairly easy. You have the same picking pattern and shape for this one. So you could basically just work on the first part here, and then you can go between each pair of them. So you go. Or if you want more of a workout and you feel, less confident with this stuff, start down here. And then we're gonna go do it on each half step instead. So. But don't do that, just keep it slow. That's what I do when I practice myself. Just a bit boring to watch me play it at that tempo. But yeah, this one also it's kind of unsettling actually. I think you can annoy, spouses and pets alike with this one. But it's a really good one to work on if you're not completely confident with this whole pattern, and then you can start working on the actual moving in minor thirds. So another thing I would do though is to work on the transition here. So, and actually you could loop this one because you start on the pinky and this ends on the index fingers. You can go. Move that up in half steps, and so on. So it's a bit of the practice advice for this one, and obviously for the picking sequence, it's going to continue on being the same picking wise. But one extra thing you can try is what I call the mechanical practice, where you break everything down into notes per string basically, and then usually you will see that, okay, this is mainly based on 3 notes per string, which this one is, or maybe it's 2 notes per string, whatever. But this is 3 notes per string, which leaves us with the 1, 2, 3 fingering, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4, and 2, 3, 4. And then you can apply that to this sequence, so you can get a lot of practice in without having to remember so many position shifts, which can be really helpful when you work on the initial technique. Because if you don't have the mechanics down and you have to remember all this stuff, it can be very hard to keep your focus on where the focus should be, where's the proper technique. So if I do this with 1, 2, 3, starting from the 15th fret, for example, what I do when I practice stuff like this is that whenever it's a position shift, I just make it a half step regardless. But other than that, I will keep the number of notes per string the same. Everything is the same except that I'm using this sort of dummy fingering. So 1, 2, 3 would sound like this. continued on the whole way here. And then you can do the same thing with 1, 2, 4. And then 1, 3, 4 and 2, 3, 4. So, and this one is actually very easy to move up and down the fretboard in half steps as well. So if you're really uncomfortable with this sequence, I would highly suggest that you do this instead of working on the sequence alone. Take the whole sequence as well as it is and work on that in half steps up and down the fretboard as much as you can. But also do it with these 4 fingerings. Because you do that, you can really turn this technical problem for you into a really great picking workout. And if you do that for a few weeks, you're bound to see a big difference in your overall technique as well. As long as you keep the tempo reasonable, so you don't sit there and really focus on solid technique, basically.